Hi, welcome to Talk Track Tips, where every week I give some information that will hopefully make your next presentation a little bit easier, a little bit more enjoyable. And this week I want to talk about being a better listener. So this is counterintuitive for a lot of us who are thinking about presentations because you think a lot about the things that you're going to say. But being a better listener can improve the connection that you have with your audience, that relationship you're building with your audience. It's not just about the things that you're going to say, it's about connecting with them so that everybody walks out of there feeling like they had a great experience. So there are several opportunities you as a presenter have to listen to your audience. And one of those is before the presentation even starts. You can research who's going to be there. I used to do this for some of my smaller group events where I would find out who exactly was going to be there and do the research about their account. Did they have any issues that, had really been a big issue for them, so that I had an idea of what they were hoping to get out of that presentation. You can also mix and mingle beforehand if it's a smaller group, if it's a kind of a smaller venue. It doesn't really work if you're a keynote speaker and there's thousands of people. Usually you wait until afterwards to mingle, but you can walk around a smaller group, get to know people, shake hands, build that relationship before you go on stage. I really hate when I go to a breakout presentation and the presenter is sitting up there at the podium, staring at their laptop, maybe checking their phone, and really not ever breaking the wall between them and the audience because they're missing a huge opportunity to get to know the people that are going to be sitting with them for the next 45 minutes. So another great opportunity for you as a presenter is while you're presenting. Now, this is not necessarily to, listen with your ears. It's more to listen with your eyes. So it is checking in on the nonverbal cues from the audience. It's really easy to tell when they understand what you're saying versus when they're just not getting it. And they understand, they're leaning forward, they're nodding, they're maybe smiling, they're getting it. If they are not getting it, then you see a lot of bewildered expressions, faces like this. So they're not getting it. So maybe you can explain it in a different way. One of my favorite techniques is to say the same thing twice in different ways. And this is really helpful when you are talking to a group where you might have multiple languages that are spoken. So you can say the same thing several times, and based on how you say it, it starts to connect with people who might have different linguistic structures. But I find that in things like technology, that's also really useful because people have different backgrounds. They have different ways that they are absorbing this information and comparing this information. So if you say it in a few different ways, you might start to light up that light bulb. Some really bad body language that you don't want to see, but I've seen it all. If you are really not resonating with the crowd, you'll see things like this. You'll definitely see the glazed over expressions. Maybe they just start typing on their computer. They're checking their phone. They're talking to each other. So those are huge clues that you need to bring them back in. That whatever you're doing is not connecting with them. And so you can do things on the fly. Start phrasing your information differently. Start talking to them in a different way. Maybe you thought you were going to be talking to a lot of departmental managers, and it turns out you're talking to C-levels. What is the most important thing for them to hear? You can do that in the middle of a presentation without necessarily changing your slides. Just talk to them. You're having this conversation with your audience. So the last last opportunity you have, in my opinion, to really listen to them is in their questions. So if you explain something really well, people will add on to that information with their questions. Something along the lines of, okay, well, you mentioned earlier, and they'll say what I mentioned, and they're like, but that got me thinking. And they'll start to add on to that, these extra questions that you didn't include. And those are really good questions. If a lot of people have the same question, I would say that is where you want to maybe add that to your next presentation. It'll make that just a little bit better. But if people are asking you questions about things you thought you explained, then consider that maybe you need to explain it better next time. There's always going to be people who weren't paying attention, and they might even preface it with, I might have missed this, but oftentimes people will have these questions just because you didn't explain it as thoroughly or as well as you could the next time. So pay attention to those questions, write them down so that you have that feedback the next time you give that same presentation to a group. So being a better listener is really good as a presenter, but it's also just good for all of us in life because it's not just about the next thing that we're going to say. It's really about listening and learning from each other. So I hope that all of you have found some of this useful. Please go out and have a really great time at your next presentation.